All right, what's up, guys? This is Jake. Welcome to episode number 12 of the Warcry Games podcast. Man, I love seeing that number go up every week.
Yeah.
Or every other week. Yeah, but we skipped out last week. It was too much, or too many of us were just unavailable. So,
yeah, we're busy humans, dude.
Yeah, busy humans. There's only a couple of us, but it's good. It's a good time.
Pulling it down.
Joining me today, we got the man, the legend himself, Brandon. How you doing, man?
Yo, what up? Back in the flesh.
Yeah, John was busy. I think he's got a family thing going on, and Darren is at like an alternate work location, so he won't be available for at least another week or two. We're going to go through our normal routine. Starting things off, we're going to talk about what games we've been playing. I think you're really going to like some of the ones I have. I've been holding off on saying it. Then we're going to move on to the best bit, and Brandon introduced this, where we're going to go over the best romantic couple in a video game.
Valentine's Day, let's go.
Yeah, I thought that was perfectly planned, because that's what I was researching. I was like, oh, it's fucking Valentine's Day week, This is good.
Come on, dude. I think these things through.
Let's see, after that, we're going to talk gaming news over the past week or two, which there's a lot of little small kind of snippets I want to hit up on. We can just kind of talk about like what our thoughts are on it. I got a couple opinions on a little bit of the gaming news. I'm sure you do as well. And then we're going to move on to the next segment that's going to be called Electronic Entertainment Expo, where we're going to be chatting about the relevancy of E3. I'm curious to know your thoughts on that. I think
this will be a good discussion.
Yeah. After that, we're going to move into the Warcry, where we introduce a topic that's designed to spark debate between the two of us, and then all the links to the talking points are going to be in the description below. Let's start with the games we've been playing with you, man. What have you been playing?
All right, I got a long-ass list.
Holy shit.
Two of them were deep, and then a few of them I just played. I actually just went to one of my buddies' places, and we just played a bunch of multiplayer games, so I'll give some shout-outs and some quick thoughts. But the two that I want to spend a lot of time on, I did finish Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. So I think I mentioned this last podcast that I was starting it. And for those who don't know, this was a Kickstarter-funded game by the original creator, I think Igiyasha. I forget his full name.
I'll pop it up here in a second.
It's Iga something. But he created some of the most iconic Castlevania games, including Castlevania Symphony of the Night, which is why it's named so closely. And it's really, really, really similar to that game. In a lot of ways, it actually modernizes a few things. Some of the fast travel mechanics, you can instantly warp back to the home base. There is a home base that's kind of a modern gaming convention. There's a really cool system in Bloodstained where every enemy has a chance to drop a unique spirit, essentially. It's just like a new weapon or spell that you can use that's inspired by the enemy. So if you kill an arrow enemy, he might drop a spirit that lets you shoot arrows. If you kill a shield enemy, he might drop a spirit that lets you use a shield, right? It's kind of a cool mechanic. It does in some ways kind of encourage you to continue killing enemies, because I think in a lot of games that are Metroidvania, which means you're going through the levels over and over and over, you kind of get sick of killing the same enemies. And so I think it was actually a creative way to encourage you to kill those enemies, because yes, you get experience points, but more importantly, there's this chance to get this brand new weapon or spirit, which is kind of a cool mechanic.
So just a random drop, right? Like it's
Yeah. Yeah, it's the only ones that are not random are the boss enemies. Like every time you kill a boss, you instantly get their spirit or whatever it is. So that's just kind of like a cool. It's like a shard. It's really interesting, the animation. If you look at the animation of when the shard gets into you, definitely looks like it's hurting the main character. You're like, oh shit, that's not a good thing. But it's very clever how they do it. And again, if you've played Castlevania Symphony of the Night, there are so many nods to that game in terms of little Easter eggs and secrets and characters. There's literally, I'll give one, there's a hidden boss that literally has the exact same moveset as one of the Castlevania main characters. Literally all the same axes and the whip and everything is straight from a Castlevania. Oh shit, okay. Clearly.
It's funny we were talking inspiration or infringement. I mean, the guy created the last one, so it's hard to say anything like that, but
yeah.
I would say if anybody can do it, it'd be him, obviously. If you're gonna just
the original creator, yeah.
You can get away with that.
It's so the other thing I will mention. So I did play it on Switch, and I think last time I mentioned that I was purposely waiting to play it on Switch because of the
Yeah.
performance patches.
Yeah.
Even with the performance patches, there definitely were a couple areas that were a little choppy, unfortunately.
Wow.
Even though it was 1.04, I would have hated to play this game at launch. It sounds like it really was a nightmare. The areas were like.
That's
It
what
wasn't
John was
like
saying.
terrible. Yeah, even in 1.04 it wasn't terrible, but it definitely wasn't like a smooth 30. It was definitely like some areas were chugging maybe like a 2025, you could tell. But it really didn't impact the overall. I would just say for those who are looking to play it, Switch is probably not the ideal platform just from a performance perspective, unless you really want the portability.
Why is
It is
that?
on Game Pass though, so
Like it doesn't look that demanding of a game, like just
yeah,
the shiny
I
port.
think the problem is it's Unreal Engine 4, and I've heard Unreal Engine 4 doesn't run great on Switch. I think there's just some issues with like porting that tech to the platform. I don't know. I'm not a developer, so I don't know like behind the scenes nuts and bolts of it. But there definitely are some little nuances there. But overall, I definitely enjoyed the game. It definitely, I mean, it's not going to reinvent the wheel. It really is just like a Castlevania game made in modern day with some new fancy bells and whistles. So if you love Castlevania Symphony of the Night, you will really love this game. Second game I put a lot of time in. If I had to guess, I don't know. Like I haven't looked at like how far in the game I am from a chapter perspective. I'm probably like 75%. Is Metro Exodus.
Interesting.
So
Steam,
have you
right?
played it? Well, technically Game Pass, so that's why I'm getting a lot of these games.
Okay.
This one's I got the $1 for 3 months Game Pass thing. I'm just like plowing through games.
Yeah.
Have you played any of the previous Metro games?
Big old zero. None of them.
Okay.
I'm familiar with them, and I remember the trailer for this one. This was the one with like the giant rat creature when you're in the underground area. You're trying to climb through, and it's like attacking you.
Yeah,
Super realistic looking.
Yeah, so let me say a couple things about the Metro series. So they're inspired by this Russian series of novels where it's a post-apocalyptic Russia, and you're essentially just like living amongst the sewers, like scavenging for food and weapons and things. And the original Metro, I thought it was okay. I actually really loved the sequel, which was Metro Last Light. I got that for free when I got a new graphics card. And the one thing that I love about the Metro games, and it also holds true with Metro Exodus, is they do stealth combat really well. That's probably the best part of the Metro games, where you're crouching through a sewer, and because it's post-apocalyptic, you actually have a mix of enemies. So you have like these crazy deformed rats, these crazy deformed humans, but you also have like actual humans just like trying to survive. So my favorite thing, and it started in Metro Last Light, is you have a knife and you have a silenced pistol, and you can just kind of like crawl through the sewers, look around, see guys looking like with their flashlights trying to find you, and just like silenced pistol, knife kill. It's just such a fun. They do such a good job of setting up these scenarios that you really feel like a badass sneaking around and just like killing people one by one. AI is really, really well done. And the one thing the Metro games have always been known for is very, very impressive graphics. And so Metro Exodus, I will say, definitely holds true to that. I'm playing it with ray tracing on. It is a very beautiful looking game. And the one thing that's different about Metro Exodus...
Ray tracing, this fucking guy.
Yeah,
with that graphics card. Must be nice.
RTX, dude. Get on my level. 280 Super. Yeah, it's looking real fresh with that 60 frames.
2080 Super. Yeah.
Yeah, 2080 Super, yeah. So, the one thing that's different about Metro Exodus compared to the previous games is the previous two games were fairly linear in design. You go through these like sewer environments or overworld environments, but it's pretty much you're going through a linear area and just going from point A to point B. This game definitely has linear areas, but they also kind of drop you off in these big environments, and they encourage you to go explore. There's like little bandit camps you can go and raid. There's other little like monster hideouts. And the reason you'd want to explore is because this game is really, really good with weapon customization. So there's a lot of...
that. Didn't they say like you just go grab a tin can or something, you grab the wire, like I don't know the ins and outs, but you craft, say, your own silencer, your own knife, your own... Okay. That's supposed to be huge.
Not necessarily you're crafting silencers. You're crafting like ammunition is a really big one. So what's really cool about the Metro games is they really take this like post-apocalyptic spin on weapons. So there's some guns that are like air pressure. So you actually have to like pump the gun. It's not like based on like a explosion, right? They pump the gun and then you're using like air pressure to push out just like shrapnel and shit what you find on the ground. So you can like find a bunch of like scrap metal and you can like craft it into these little metal balls that you just put in this air powered gun and then shoot that. And it's like, oh shit, the gun jammed. You like really, it's like the gun got dirty. You got to clean the gun. It's very much trying to set the stage in terms of realism and being in that post-apocalyptic world.
Can you imagine, dude? That giant rat thing's coming at you. Let me get this.
Jams,
let me get. Oh no!
Yeah, I gotta pump my gun, dude. Yeah, it's like really stressful. Like that's definitely happened. Like even the guns that aren't air pressured, like I just got like the equivalent of an AK-47. Like gun jams, got dirty. Like I'm in a sandstorm or something like that, and the gun fucking jams. You're like, oh, okay, all these fucking creatures are coming at me. Like, what do I do? Switch to my pistol, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's really, it sets up some really interesting dynamics. And the open world-ish design is pretty interesting. Like I said, the benefit of going to the camps is you can find all these different modifications for your gun. So it's like, all right, you go to this bandit camp. Perfect. They've got a zoom-in scope you can attach to a sniper rifle. Perfect, they've got a silencer for your pistol. Perfect, they've got a new gas mask that like protects against more damage or things like that. So a lot of those cool mechanics. And again, you know, gas mask, you're changing your filter every time if there's radiation. You got to recharge your battery on your flashlight. There's a lot of just like those little touches that aren't in a lot of first-person shooters that really make help the sense of immersion in the world. So enjoying it so far. Definitely fun. I will say. The one thing that's a little weird is the story is interesting, but I think this is just a syndrome of coming from Red Dead Redemption 2, where they set up these situations where you're like in camp, right? You have kind of like a home base, and so you go to camp, and they like try to make it like, oh, everyone's like joking, like singing, like doing all these things that you would do in camp, and it's funny because coming right from Red Dead Redemption 2. The protagonist in Metro Exodus is silent versus, like I said before, we had this discussion on a previous podcast, Red Dead Redemption 2, it's the same kind of thing where you're coming back to camp, but your character is actually talking to these other characters. So it's really this weird disconnect that I'm noticing, especially coming from a game like Red Dead 2, which had a character that talked in camp. So now I'm coming to camp and I'm like, want to say hi to people, and they're just like talking to me and talking to each other and acknowledging my presence, but like I can't say anything. So it's interesting. I really applaud. I feel like they put a lot of effort into it, but I definitely am still feeling that disconnect. And what's even weirder about this shit is the Metro games have always had the silent protagonist, but in between areas when you're loading, like if you're loading into a new area, your guy narrates what just happened in like his own voice. So it's not like they didn't hire a voice actor to narrate the main character.
That is a little bit weird.
He only speaks during like these journal-esque sections where he's like, oh, that was crazy what just happened, blah, 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 blah. You're like, all right, but you're talking now. Why don't you just talk to everyone else that talks to you? It's like
they could have changed that, took it out of like those narration cutscenes and then put it into actual game, like as you're walking around or something.
It's just a really weird design choice that they've done it for all three Metro games, and I will be honest, like it has definitely hurt my ability to like get really into the story.
No silent protagonist, huh? Don't like it.
Yeah, I know. We've talked about it. This is a previous war cry, but so those are the two ones I've spent the most time, and then I'm just gonna quickly shout out 4 other games that I played at my buddy's place multiplayer. Xbox Game Pass, all of these are on there. Blazing Chrome is kind of like a Contra inspired retro throwback, really fun. It got kind of hard, so we switched the game, but it's super fun if you're looking for like a retro inspired run and gun side scroller shoot 'em up. Human Fall Flat.
Yeah, no.
I don't know if you've ever seen this game.
It's ridiculous.
It's like so weird and ridiculous. It is such a perfect co-op game. It's just like you're these two like ragdoll random physics guys running around environments trying to solve puzzles together. And so me and my buddy are like, oh shit, let me like pick you up and like do this. Or like the part I love about the game is the way that you get up ledges. So on a controller, you have to like hold the trigger to raise your hands, and then you jump and your hands grab the ledge, and then you hold down on the control stick like you're literally hoisting yourself up, and it's so funny to see their like little bodies like flap everywhere. It's like, and then you just like flop down onto the surface. It's like a really, really, really funny game. Great for co-op puzzle. I think you can play it single player as well. I think it's more fun with friends, but it's definitely fun just to laugh for it. You know.
I know, like you said you played it on Game Pass, but like I remember early on in like the Switch's life cycle, there wasn't many games, and I remember I kept eyeballing that one. I'm pretty sure it was there sometime early to mid 2017. I was like, ugh. I didn't want to buy it, but like I did watch some gameplay of it. It's like, should I get this? Should I get the no? But I think you're right. Like it does seem like it'd be a lot more.
It's worth for like $5-10 or Game Pass if you have it, just like to mess around, especially with like a significant other or a friend or something.
Yeah.
2 other really quick games. I did play a couple rounds of Soul Calibur 6. I'd never played that before. That was also on Game Pass. I just wanted to check it out with my buddy because I wanted to check out Geralt from Witcher. Who
you didn't create your own character?
No, I didn't spend the time. Okay. We played for probably like 30 minutes.
Oh, okay.
But the only other Soul Calibur game I played Soul Calibur 2. I'll just quick shout out. Geralt was fucking nuts. So cool. He had all his like Witcher spells. So he's like spitting fire. He's doing like the shield and stuff. Really, really cool implementation of him in the game, and it looks beautiful. Really pretty looking game. I'm not super deep into fighting games outside of Smash, so I couldn't tell you too much about the mechanics, but it was fun for 30 minutes. And then lastly, I showed my buddy Worms WMD. Have you ever played a Worms game?
Mm-mm.
So Worms games, I played these really long time ago when I was like 10 years old, and they used to be on PC. And essentially, it's like a turn-based game where there's one map that's 2D, and you're all on like a floating island. And the whole point of it is you have like 3 worms, and they have 3 worms or 4 worms or something. And everyone takes a turn, and you have like 60 seconds to move one of your worms and try to attack the other player's worms. And you get these like crazy guns, these like sheeps that explode, these homing missiles. And what's really cool about it is the entire island that you're floating on is destructible. So if you're trying to attack another player's worm, you throw a grenade and it blows up an entire area, and then you can like go underground and come back on the other side of the map and like try to kill some of their worms with like melee attacks and stuff. Really unique style of game. I hadn't played it in like 10-15 years or something, so I just wanted to show my buddy it because I remember loving it as a kid. But I know they've continued to make sequels, and I guess this was one of the latest iterations of it. It's fun for multiplayer. Honestly, the gameplay hadn't changed much since 15 years since I played Worms 2 on PC. But maybe I was just playing like the classic mode. I don't know. But it's fun if you've never played a Worms game. And if you watch some gameplay, see if it's appealing.
Dang, dude.
But that's all I got. I got some games, but it's been a busy week.
Well, I'm bringing forward to the table 4 games and 1 piece of software. So, yeah. So I'll get to that later. That'll be like my finisher. But for the first game, still plowing through DBZ Kakarot, and I actually got some comments this time on it. But yeah, so I'm 35 hours in. So I'm a good ways in. You know the Dragon Ball series. So actually, I just watched Cell become semi-perfect Cell. He just absorbed Android 17.
Cruising, dude.
Yeah, I mean
that's the gross one with like the nasty mouth. That's like halfway between. Yeah,
he's
I'm Cell.
I'm trying to even think. Yeah. Well, actually, just starting with that, I'll even just start with my criticism of that. Like, yeah, small criticisms. Like, they're as a big fan of the franchise. Like, I see so many corners cut. Like, I see so many things like, oh, I can't wait to fight against Imperfect Cell. Nope, that didn't happen. Semi-Perfect Cell. Actually, right now,
you don't even fight the first form of Cell?
No. You see him. Like, you go to, Ginger Town. He's already, like, decimated the population. You go there.
You don't have, like, the Piccolo versus Cell fight in that?
You see Piccolo being... Actually, let me make sure. Hold on. Maybe I could be wrong, because that might have happened last night. I could be wrong on that.
When you get 30 minutes of sleep, dude.
Yeah. Actually, you might have done like one quick fight against him. I'll have to remember, but maybe that wasn't a good example. But in general, there's a lot of like small things, I guess, on that scale that you miss. Like, there's a lot of things I was like, oh, come on, like, why didn't they include this, or why did they skip out on this thing? And it would be something equivalent to that. But you actually might fight against Imperfect Cell. I don't know about Semi-Perfect yet because Tien just started firing his beam at him, and Tien's about to fall. And
Oh!
yeah, Neo Tri-Beam.
Yeah,
And then Goku's about to go there and like save him, so I got it paused like right there where I'm staring at Tien and semi-perfect cell. But it's so yeah, again, maybe that's not the best example, but there's a lot of corners cut in there. I wish I had better examples, but it's like, man, they just kind of glossed over this entire section of the game, or why didn't I do anything in this section of the game, or why didn't they include this? And I'm sure it's like development versus time versus, like, I felt like earlier on in the game, first 15, 20 hours, like everything was like super detailed. Like, I can't believe they included this, and I did the
small little things from the first arcs. Yeah.
Everything. And then now it's like things are, I didn't, like, say Goku going to Namek, everybody's there fighting on Namek. I'm going against the Frieza forces. Vegeta takes out Kui. Like, everything's like exactly like the anime. But for Goku, I was really, really looking forward to his training on the ship, like all of the stuff that happened on the ship. But it was like one episode, not even an episode, it was like this cut scene saying, and Goku healed, and now he's on Namek.
Training on a ship is like not something I would be upset about.
When you play it, you'll understand what I mean. Like, they're super detailed about a lot of stuff. Like, they do you'd be surprised at the level of detail and immersion that they incorporated in this. Like, you do stuff, you're like, wow, like I remember that. Like, I can't believe they incorporated that. But then they'll leave giant chunks. Like, that was
interesting.
I don't know, 5 to 10 episodes of
but you also have to remember, was that anime filler or was that in the manga?
Right.
Manga, whatever.
I don't know. I never actually read the manga, so I don't know.
So that's the other thing too. It's like, how much are they taking from anime and what was just like filler episodes?
And I understand a lot of that, but like even filler, they do some. Like, I just did the Piccolo and Goku driving school.
Yeah, you did.
That was fun. That was okay. I mean, like, I knew it was going to be in there, and I was like, yeah, I was looking forward to it, but it was like 1 minute long, and
it just happened. Yeah,
it was real cool that it was the same characters, the same driving instructors that they had in the anime, like the exact same. They look the same, the old man and the girl, and it was like, oh, they modeled the character. Like, it's super detailed in a lot of areas, but I swear, like, I'm getting the feeling that there's, like, the later I get into the game, the more they're skipping sections.
They like ran out of time to do stuff.
It's a strong feeling I'm getting, but I love the world. I just spend hours like flying around and exploring everything. So that 35 hours, I'm sure if you go to like how long to beat, it's probably a 30 to 35 hour game. But I'm like halfway through like the main, I'm in Cell Saga, which I still got to go through Perfect Cell. I still got to get into the Boo Saga. Still got to complete all that. There's some post game stuff you can do, and so I'm taking my time. I'm soaking it in. I love it.
I mean, as long as you're still enjoying it, dude.
Another small criticism. So I'm bringing some criticisms today.
Hey, man, you're allowed to.
They are definitely trying. I mean, they wanted to hold on to that teen rating. If you've watched anything of, anything Z Saga, say Special Beam Cannon going through Goku and blood pouring out, or anything in the Namek arc where villages are getting decimated and hands are going through bodies and it's like super brutal, like none of that's there. Like,
that doesn't surprise me though, dude.
I know,
like, that is a big part of trying to appeal the game. Dragon Ball appeals to all ages, so
yeah, but
limiting it to an M rating seems off for a Dragon Ball game.
Would it be an M rating though? Because like, what's the anime?
Decapitation and like open wounds, dude. That's an M rating. Cartoon violence is like the most they can get with like T.
That's okay.
Cartoon violence is like some blood.
But I mean, all of them are. I mean, it's cartoon. Yeah, I don't know. It just, again, it's I guess my own little criticism,
but like that's more of like a business thing. Like,
yeah, that sucks. It just sucks to see like, oh man, I can't wait until I see Frieza go into many little pieces after getting cut up with a sword, but it was really just he's getting slashed with a sword and then it gets blown.
Then he just, like, blows in a beam. Like, I mean, that's what happens in the anime.
He's floating in little bits in the anime. Okay. You see his eyeball going in rotations and all this, and then Trunks goes,
You're like this. You are a super fan. You're so specific about little things you need to see. Yeah.
So it's just like your standard person who reads a book or like really loves a book and then watches the movie. It's like, they left.
Like, you want to see it. Yeah.
So I have that same feeling, but again, outside that, battles are pretty easy. The RPG elements are kind of okay, but they're not the highlight. They're kind of, they're there, but it's more of an inconvenience now. Like, I have to upgrade my Kamehameha to like level 3 or whatever, but all you have to do is go into the menu individually, click the button, now you're good. Like, it's it doesn't feel. The only thing that feels earned is you have to go to these training grounds to unlock certain new abilities. That feels like more earned. But the other thing, it's just like his skill tree is like 50, 60, 70 items long, and all of it are usually like upgraded from level 1, 2, 3. Same thing, 1, 2, 3. Same thing, 1, 2, 3. And it's like, it's a very slow process too. It's methodical.
Interesting.
Yeah. Not a big deal. But my next game I'm bringing to the table, you'll like this. It was actually close to the top, or maybe even at the top of my backlog. Played through and beat What Remains of Edith Finch. Yeah, man. This was a good game.
Let's go. Yes, it is.
It's a very good game. Like, as I'm playing this thing, I was like, why have I never played this before? This has been sitting in my library for how long? That was a good game, man. Thank you, Brandon. This was
all right. Let's all right. Favorite story. Let's start there.
Okay, so I don't want to be too spoilery because it's a
just
2-hour
say
game, so it's not a big deal.
The character, like their relationship.
I don't know the relationship of the kid in the bathtub. That's only like 1 year old.
The baby.
It's like maybe her uncle, her mother,
it's
his
just
brother.
the baby. I mean, there's only one baby.
Yeah. So the baby, and like those who don't know,
for you especially, dude.
Yeah. See, this is what I'm saying. Like a lot of this was like hitting me hard. There was a couple in there that was like this. So this game, essentially, what you're doing is you're a girl, the last remaining member of your family, and you're going back to visit your own home. Your mom had this quirk, I guess you'd say quirk, where she's like sealing up the doors to a house, your old house, and everybody that's ever been like part of your family, like any generational part of your family, has a home or a room inside this house. And your goal is to navigate through the house and then enter into each room and get to know each character, each person in your family a little bit better, because apparently you don't know them very well. Your mom kind of just didn't tell you that, and there's a reason. You know, I won't go into like everything, but there's a reason.
Yeah. If you haven't played it, anyone who's listening, just play it, please.
Yeah,
please,
just play it. It's worth it. It's good. It's a roller coaster of emotions. It has.
Yeah.
I really liked the teenager girl. I think she was like 16 years old. Used to be
the actress.
Yeah. So I like that. Seeing that whole gameplay segment was really, really cool.
What I will say without spoiling, it's crazy how many different art and gameplay styles they put in one game.
Yeah. That was cool. Like I said, the one that hit me the most, probably because I'm like a brand new father, like 2-3 weeks in now, was the 1-year-old sitting in the bathtub, and it's so jolly and cheerful, and you're playing with these rubber duckies and frog bouncing up and down, and it's real fun. But there's another one also where you're an 8-year-old girl. And whenever I'm saying this is like you kind of flash back into memories. You flash back into how these characters' lives were at certain points in their stage. Like you're literally getting to know your family.
How they were. Is I would put quotes around it.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the beauty of the story, is it's kind of like a larger than life tale.
Yeah.
Only made possible through like a gameplay experience.
Yeah.
Like these are like the tall tales that people used to tell about like the family. And so there's like an unreliable narrator every time you're like experiencing a story, and you never really know like what's real, what's not. And that's what makes it such a beautiful thing.
It's a really good way to put it. Unreliable narrator. I really, really like that. But yeah, I think Brandon's kind of got it down to a science here. Like try to go in as blind as you can. I was completely blind. I knew nothing. I knew nothing. The only thing I had seen was, and that's how I am with a lot of my games, but all I had ever seen before was one person walking in a forest in like a little bit of narration. That was
great.
It.
That's like
nothing.
The fact that you're expecting that makes it so much better.
Yeah. And it was good. It's a beautifully designed game. I think, the only other thing I said was the other one that got to me was the 8-year-old girl. Mom puts her to bed, like kind of without food. There's a segment of like what she's doing in her room, and just good times.
So that's interesting. My favorite one was actually the fish can, the fishery.
Oh yeah. Okay. So that's
hands down my favorite, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Because that sequence, just that sequence, can only be done in video games.
Yeah.
And the emotional and narrative payoff
that was good.
Is only possible by interacting with a video game. And I'm like, this is what video games have come to, right? Like this, we are telling a story, but that can only be told because you're interacting. It was
good.
It was like crazy. Yeah.
You should check my Steam page. I took screenshots the whole time through. Anything that I felt was like a good moment or impactful, that whole section with that, I probably took like 15 or 20 screenshots. I loved it. Yeah. I was just thinking more impactful. Like this thing was like for me, I know that.
Yeah,
was,
the baby one, yeah. That was part of my number 2, and for you, it should be number 1.
Yeah.
Because you have a brand new baby. But I was just saying, just like. The baby one is poignant, but it's not necessarily the gameplay of the baby one that sticks out. The gameplay and the story of the fishery one. Good. It's just like there's nothing else I've ever experienced that combines those two things so beautifully in like a 10-15 minute segment, you know?
So if you guys have not played this, like don't do yourself the disservice I did after all this time and like not just go boot it up. It's like a 2-hour game and run through it. It's an amazing experience. Like it's really, really good. And if you don't own it, I recommend go buying it. It's probably super, super cheap now. I got it from you Steam Steal actually. I had to click the little request button. It's like, oh, you already have permission. Go ahead and.
You got the Steam Sale from me?
Yeah.
Nice.
Moving on, we'll go to the next game. I'm going to rapid fire these last 2 because I only played like you about an hour of each one. Then I'll get into my software. Then we'll move into the next segment. Resident Evil 7. I only played about an hour.
Ooh.
So. What happened was sparked me to play this. Yeah, I bought it a couple of months ago. It was $5. It gives you the Xbox version as well as the Windows Store version. Sure. So I got both. And I was like, okay, $5, I'll do it. I'll eventually play it. And Susie, which is my sister-in-law, she's here and she's heard about this game but didn't know anything about it and she wanted to play. I was like, boot it up. Yeah, I know. And she kind of likes horror movies. She's not really... She'll watch, like, horror games, but... Dude, okay, so your reaction is very interesting because here's how this went. Yeah. She got to... Like, I don't know how well you remember the game, but early on, there's a segment, like, very, very early on, where you put a VCR tape in the machine and then you start playing that. Yeah. She couldn't finish that. She couldn't finish that. Yeah, too scary for her. Yeah. Like she was like, she put the VCR tape in, she's playing it, she's watching the guys walk through the house, and I think where you have to go down in the pit. And she's like, she hard quit. Like when I came into the room, because I was like running errands, I have to go to like so many different appointments and doing stuff. I came in and the screen was paused, and she's like playing on her phone. I'm like, what's up? She's like, I can't. I just can't. I can't go any further. And I was like, interesting. So what I ended up doing was. So
you didn't play it?
I ended up playing it after this. So
that part, yeah. Okay.
No, I took it over and I was like, okay, I want to start over. I want to get the feel for the controls, the story. Yeah. So she just sat there and watched me play for like an hour, maybe 2. I got to the part past that where finally you meet Jack. He's chasing you through the house, and I've got.
Did you have the dinner scene?
Yeah. That it was right after the dinner scene. So I see Grandma to my left.
Welcome to the family, son.
Yeah. and I mean, it's kind of creepy. Like I already had the whole scene with I think it's your wife, Mia. Already had like a interesting, and again, I don't want to spoil anything, but I had like a scene against her. I'm past most of all that. I'm with Jack. So if you know where Jack's intro is, I'm doing that. That's all I got to. And then again, I had like more stuff I had to go do.
Dude.
The last game I'll talk about again briefly, and this was because you and me talked about it the other day, was Assassin's Creed Black Flag. And
yeah, you booted it up.
Yeah, I checked my Uplay, and I did redeem the free game like years ago or whatever. And so I was like, oh, cool, let me check this. And
I told you that I would have been surprised if you didn't pick it up.
Yeah. So like I booted it up, maxed out the settings, put everything 4K Ultra. I'm like, I got this. This is a 2013 game or something. And no, I don't got this. My card still. Dude. Yeah, it was like super noticeable. I went from like 4K Ultra, and I was like, man, even tweaking the settings down, I don't think it's gonna work. So I ended up playing in like 1440p. And
you could probably do 4K medium.
Yeah, I didn't get like super in depth with it. I only got to the part where like already, you know, in the beginning where you're chasing the assassin, killed him. Then I went and commandeered a ship kinda with that one guy that I think's like part of you. Yeah. Still kind of early. I just wanted to get a feel for like the mechanics. I had that urge to play it again because what was it? I don't know what sparked the interest in it. We had a conversation about it, but I don't know what sparked it.
Pirate shit, yeah.
I was like, let me try it, let me do it, but Yeah, my time is super limited now. Like I was interrupted after the hour, and then I didn't go back to it because I had to do like other stuff.
Baby stuff.
But yeah, baby stuff, and I was like, man. But I just wanted to get like a feel for it. I think I'll continue playing it. I think I need to give that game a little bit more love, a little bit more attention.
It's one of the best pirate games and one of the best Assassin's Creeds all at the same time.
And then moving on, the only other thing is the piece of software I've been playing. Actually, I think I was trying to sell you on this, and you were calling me like a VR salesman. I think during this part, my home, so Oculus, what you can do, whenever you put on your VR headset and you don't click into any games or anything, you enter into your own home environment. And for years, it was just like your standard home. You can spawn like a paddle, like a golf club, a gun, like very, very, very minimal things. And you can decorate it a little bit, but not much. But now, or at least sometime recently, you're able to like fully open up your, like redesign your home, you know. And I made mine look completely different. Instead of the pirate scene that's kind of standard in default, I have a cyberpunk looking flashing neon signs. You look over, it's a city that's booming, and lights are like pouring out of windows like it's a waterfall. Really, really cool. I changed my entire environment around. I have this like giant claw that's coming out of the ceiling that's hovering over this massive jellyfish tank.
You just like being lost in these worlds?
Yeah. It's not, it's just it's like your home. It's like this room. Yeah. And it's the coolest thing that I like about it is like, say you beat a game, or say you clear some achievement in a game, you get an item that will be like symbolic of that. Like say I beat Vader Immortal. Well, now that I've beaten all the 3 Vader Immortals, I have 2 different lightsabers. And,
in your home?
Yeah, and they're functional.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
So I have them sitting up on a shelf, and I can walk up, I can grab it, and it'll activate, and then I can burn the ground. Like, it's just like I have it in the game. You don't get that until you play and beat that game. A lot of games are like that.
Cool. That's really cool.
For, like, achievements, you know, like, yeah, and PlayStation, Xbox, whatever, it'll pop up, hey, congratulations, you got the achievement. In this game, you get a poster you can put up on the wall, and then it'll be like, hey, you earned this achievement. So, like, anything I liked, I'm like, hey, boom. I got this Beat Saber achievement. I beat this song on the Expert Plus or whatever. And, like, you can do it with all the different VR games you played.
That's really cool. I didn't realize that. That's really, really cool. That actually encourages people to do achievements.
Yeah. And I wasn't as, like I haven't even thought about this. Like, usually I just boot up a game. I just ignore that whole home sequence. But when I saw that and I started seeing, like, oh, look at all the crap that you can do. Like, here, I was like, I want to make a VR home. If I can, I'll probably link some of it. I'll do like a walk around of my home, like while I'm talking, here, just so you guys can see it. But that's it for that's cool. Yeah, man, it was pretty cool. That's it for our game segment. Let's move on to the first bit of the podcast, the best bit, with the following question: what is the best romantic couple in video games? Your call, Brandon. Do you want to start, or do you want me to? Because I'm worried that we might have some of the same.
I'll let you start.
Okay, I only have 2. I have an honorable mention and then a main one. I had some others, but I was like, no. Like, the only ones I feel like are truly, really worth it are these 2. First video game I ever played is Super Mario World. First game I ever beat was Super Mario World. And I know it's pretty generic just to say, like, Mario and Peach, but I remember more than anything, like, the end sequence. Like, okay, you didn't have a build-up. You had a text box saying the princess is gone. But if you beat it, the princess comes floating down out of Bowser's, whatever his little, like, floating device is. She comes down, and it's like, oh, you know, you saved me. And she gives you a kiss, you blush, and it goes into, like, this cinematic where you guys are, like, traveling the world together, going back through everything that you saw, like, all the environments. But it's just, like, if you think about it, like, really, like, you went through all of those struggles. You did all of that. This little plumber guy, like, you're doing everything you can, taking out all these enemies, going, you know, clearing every single segment, clearing all the bosses, finally killing the big bad guy just to get to the girl. Like, the concept itself is, like, super, I mean, it's romantic, you know, it's a romantic, a hugely romantic gesture.
God.
Yeah.
All right.
And it's my first, it was my first game, and I play it, you know, for anyone who may not know, I still play that thing annually, and I cleared 100%. I get the 96 and a star.
Secret World.
Yeah. And then, so that was my honorable mention, but the number 1, which I don't know if we're going to have the same. Actually, even if we have the same game, I think we're going to have a different selection.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to have the same, because I think I know what you're thinking of, and I think you're right. We'll probably have different, but go ahead.
Chloe and Max, Life is Strange. That's mine. And I know, like you're more like say pro. Actually, your playthrough was Chloe and what's the dude's name?
No,
Elliot.
it was not Chloe. It was Max and Warren.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, for I think your preference would be like say Chloe and Rachel, which I think they have a really really good dynamic, and I really like that. And there's a strong build up for that. But like for me, in any game that I played, I'm sitting here like going through like games that I know I've cleared, and it's actually really hard to find games that have like a good romantic couple.
Yeah,
in them.
I thought about and I'll address it when I get to mine. But yeah.
And so a lot of them are kind of weaker, and I'm sitting there like going through my game library. I'm thinking about games I've played recently, and I'm like, man, the only one that really stood out to me was my playthrough, how I played Max. With you have the option to play the characters like however you want, to make the decisions you want, to make them grow closer apart, or how you want the relationship to be. It's Life is Strange. It's all about choices. And so like that was my big push was like Max and Chloe throughout the entire game. I was just trying to get them to grow closer. I looked at it as, and there's different ways you can look at it, but I looked at it as Max went away, they grew close, maybe more of like a childhood friends who were starting to have like more of a close bond. Like I feel Chloe had like this really really strong relationship, the strong feeling for her really hit it when she left. Obviously, like she went to go to another place and she came back, but I felt like that coming back is what sparked whatever, I guess in my world, my playthrough, it sparked it sparked their whatever you call it, the romantic intentions.
The romance,
So that's just kind of like how I played it through. I was like, hey, they're reuniting, they're going through all the struggles and challenges together. They're reminiscing on like the past. Like they're growing close as a I guess as a couple, romantic couple. But that was my number one. What about you, dude?
Damn. All right, well, I'll start with honorable mentions. You are right. One of my honorable mentions was Rachel and Chloe.
Boom.
Yeah, that's a good call out. I think now my justification for all of my couples is I wanted, when I think of something that's like actually romantic, I felt like the characters need to be realistic and the romance needs to be realistic as well. Like it needs to be fleshed out and not just feel like, hey, I love you, like let's kiss, right?
Yeah.
Like to me, true romance, like there has to be that other element of like realism and like these are two real people like trying to like, put their pros and cons together and be better together. So Rachel and Chloe were kind of like that opposites attract. Like Rachel was just kind of like this dangerous inspiration for Chloe and kind of like inspired Chloe in this time of need for her. And I agree with you. Like I played Max as more of like she was really good friends with Chloe. But even it's interesting in Life is Strange, you can tell how much Chloe cares about Rachel from Life is Strange. So I think that actually added some weight to that relationship. So that was definitely one. Another honorable mention I'll shout out, Geralt and Yennefer from Witcher 3.
I figured you were going to say this too.
Yeah.
I thought about it.
It's a good honorable mention. I know you can choose between Yennefer and Triss. I like the Yennefer-Geralt relationship because I feel like she's a really good yin to Geralt's yang, because he is kind of like grizzled but also like kind of a badass, and she's also a badass, but the way that their personalities kind of like intertwine, like she is one of the only characters in the game to really challenge Geralt, whereas Triss is kind of just like this like lovable, like goofy, she's super smart girl next door, right? And I always felt like Geralt needs someone who's going to challenge him because he goes around like being a badass all the time. And to me, their relationship was so developed in such a way, and I think it's cheating a little bit because a lot of it comes in like the books and like the previous lore. But in the game, Witcher 3, it's definitely very well realized. So I wanted to give it a shout out. My number two almost was my number one. Is John and Abigail Marston from Red Dead 1 and Red Dead 2. So, again, this is hot coming off of Red Dead 2, but Red Dead 1, you could tell that they care a lot for each other, and it's really difficult because John is this cowboy trying to, put aside his past wrongdoings and just be a family man, and you can really see throughout Red Dead 1 like he's trying to do that, but Red Dead 2 really cemented this as like one of my favorite romances because there's there's some parts near the end of that game that it shows you kind of like the beginning of this relationship, and like John really trying to make this work like as a family man and like not as a cowboy. And so it really, really adds weight to that story. And so Red Dead 2 is a prequel to Red Dead 1. And so there's a lot that goes into Red Dead 2. You're like, oh, wow, you're really setting up like the lengths that he is willing to go to show his wife that he is past his bad past. He's like, he's a changed man, and he's willing to do whatever it takes for his wife. And like, to me, that whole dynamic and how she pushes him and he challenges her and all these different things, it's just such a real dynamic. And it's a really beautiful how that whole thing develops. But my number one, and again, it's a little cheap because it develops over the course of multiple games, but is Shepard and Liara from the Mass Effect series. So have you played any of the Mass Effect games? So again, it's cheap because Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3, you can have the same love interest, really, and you can carry it through 3 games worth of content. And so what's really crazy, if you do choose Liara as your love interest, it's one of the first choices in Mass Effect as one of your love interests. She starts as this very innocent girl who's just like a researcher trying to figure out like where her place is in the world. And she's very naive to a lot of things because she's like, not familiar with like how humans interact and things like this, right? And
alien love interests, man. I heard that's like big in that game.
Yeah, it is. It is. You can romance different, but it's like her characterization is very human. Only she's very detached from like typically human emotions. She hasn't really felt love before, so that's what's so important. I think in making like such a good romance is because this is like such a new feeling. And the reason I think it's number one for me is there's a really crazy thing that happens in Mass Effect 2, the beginning of Mass Effect 2, and so she has to like. You find her later in that game, and she's like dealing with the stuff that happened in the beginning of the game, and so it's crazy to see. Mass Effect 1, she's so innocent. Crazy stuff happens in Mass Effect 2. She's like dealing with all these emotions. Like she's like, you meet her and like still trying to be a partner and it's like still trying to hold up like a romance. And you have all these options to be like, hey, like let's get back together, blah, blah, blah. And then Mass Effect 3, like the final ending of the series, there's this DLC called Citadel, Mass Effect 3 Citadel, which is an amazing piece of DLC where it like does such a good job of like wrapping the series up with like a nice little bow. And I think there's a lot of interactions in that DLC that just cemented this as just like the perfect evolution of a relationship from, again, so innocent, not really knowing like what her feelings are, to by the end of the Mass Effect 3 DLC, it's like, this is like, we are meant to be with each other. This is like the relationship. This is the life that I want. And again, it is driven by player choice, but the way that I played it was definitely like going into this relationship with her and like being very committed to that relationship. And it really pays off over the course of those games.
So you can choose a different love interest, though, right? Like you said in the beginning of one. So yours may be different from anybody else's in their Mass Effect like playthrough. Yeah,
so that's why this is a little interesting choice. But my personal playthrough, I chose Liara and stuck with Liara. And so I felt that it was like a very developed relationship because they continue to go back to it and they reference choices that you made in previous games. It's like, hey, remember when you did this thing or you made that choice? And their relationship grew or changed because of the choices. And there's just like, it's hard to compete with that over the course of 3 games when it's really clear that these characters change so much in 3 games. And again, not a voiceless protagonist. So
right.
Yeah.
So feel a little bit more connected, a little bit more attached.
Yeah, you definitely do. Yeah.
That's good, man. This was a really good idea for, right during
Valentine's Day, dude.
Yeah, day after Valentine's Day for you guys.
Yeah.
All right, let's move into the next segment for gaming news. We'll rapid fire some of these. I have like, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different topics. Just want to hear your opinions on each little one. I want to share some of mine. Let's just talk about like what's happening in the gaming world the past week or two. First one, which we talk about a lot of this stuff for anybody who doesn't know. Like obviously, like me and Brandon are friends. We got other podcast members, John, Darren, anybody else in our like little group. Like anytime we hear new news, we'll pop it off each other. We kind of know what everybody's gaming preferences are. So for Brandon, I know he's a big Prince of Persia fan. He really, really likes Prince of Persia. He loves the franchise.
I didn't realize you had a disc.
Yeah, dude. I have OG Xbox. This is the only Prince of Persia game I've played. I mean, I think they have
It's a
like
good one.
yeah.
I like
And
Two Thrones, but they're all good.
the big gaming news of the week. What is it about Prince of Persia, man? They got a new
They're doing
Prince of Persia game coming out.
They're making a
They're making
VR
a game
experience.
VR.
What's even
Escape
worse
room, right?
about this, dude, is it's
Yeah.
not even a thing that you could download on your Oculus Rift. You literally
Yeah,
have to.
you have to
You can
go.
only play it at specific venues throughout like the country, right? You have to
Yeah.
go to a place and pay $30 for like a 2 hour, 1 hour experience or whatever it is.
That hurts.
Yeah,
That's like,
so
yeah.
I mean, I'm glad they didn't forget about the franchise and they're doing something with it. But it's like this is like the least accessible, like least replayable version of Prince of
Yeah.
Persia you could possibly make.
It's not like Half-Life Alex, where it's like a,
Yeah,
you know,
I'm
like,
cool with Half-Life Alyx. Because
yeah,
at least they're doing something new with the tech, and they're bringing you back in that world. This is like, yeah, they're doing some new stuff, but you have to go somewhere. You can only play an hour of it, and it's not like a long game that you can play.
I think I talked about it like during our group chat. Like it felt like to me the slap in the face that Fable Journey was with the Kinect. It's like you really want Fable 4. You want like another entry in the series. You want more Fable. Like feed me, feed me, feed me. And you know there's like the Fable Heroes or whatever the small little game was that's crappy. There was Fable Legends, which didn't come to fruition, and the Fable Journey, which was like the Kinect game, which was like, man, get this shit out of here. Like, don't even create this. Like, I don't want this. Like, shoving that bit of, it's not like VR, you know. It's just any game that came out on the Kinect to me, like it was just. It felt like a tech experience, like, hey, this is what you can do. You can push your hand out and something's going to jump out of it, but it's not a fun game. Those aren't fun experiences. I don't know. Maybe this Prince of Persia thing is going to be like super cool, but like you said, it's not very accessible. Certain locations.
I got to drive an hour and a half, the closest one.
That
Colorado
sucks.
Springs. So,
you're going to do it, though, aren't you?
I mean, maybe if I can. Yeah, I fucking love Prince of Persia, dude. I don't know.
Next little bit of news was the Platinum 4. So this came up about a week and a half ago. So Platinum games, I'm a big fan of them as well. Like I do like Bayonetta, played Astral Chain here on the channel. I've done a little bit of Nier. I haven't played enough of Nier. Just, like I said, I need to download that damn patch for PC.
Yeah, you do.
But
it fixes a lot.
I did just back the Wonderful 101, which I'm pretty sure is like one of the Platinum Platinum 4 games. They just created a website. You go to it. It's a splash page with like a 4 on it. And like we're pretty sure Wonderful 101 is gonna be like one of the big franchise titles that they're creating. The other 3, I think I know 2. I'm guessing maybe Bayo 3 and Babylon's Fall.
Yeah,
maybe?
I don't know what they're considering. That's what's interesting about this whole announcement is like, are these 4 new games?
Yeah.
Or are they like Platinum is working on 4 games and 3 of them now?
It would be more mysterious and make more sense for them to make such like a big deal about like you guys don't know what this thing is as if it's new entries. If it's the current entries, it's like, yeah, well, we know 3. We know you're working on at least 3, maybe 4. I think there was more games whenever I was researching this that they were doing. These were the 3 that stood out to me. Bayo 3, Wonderful 101, Babylon's Fall, but.
Yeah, what was the one that got canceled for Xbox? Scalebound. Yeah, I was gonna say I'd love for them to bring Scalebound back.
That would be cool.
That looks really cool from the demos.
Man, I was looking forward to that. Like, I mean, that's to me that hit Microsoft pretty hard. Like, they had been showing that off for years at like E3. They've been showing it off like, hey, look at this. And every time I saw it, I was like, this looks pretty badass. Like that dragon companion, the way the characters looked. I mean, and I wasn't big into like Platinum back then. Like, I didn't know. I didn't start anything Platinum related till like Bayo.
Young Padawan, dude. Young Padawan.
Yeah, but we'll see. We'll just see where this is going to go.
I have faith in Platinum. I mean, they're going to make good games.
That's why I backed Wonderful 101. Like, I'd seen.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't played that game, it's very good.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm going to like it. It's Platinum.
You will.
The next little bit of news, about a week and a half ago, the Super Nintendo Online titles dropped.
Yeah.
And it kind of sucks. Like, I think we went almost 3 months, or around 3 months since the last wave hit. And
we can basically move on.
Yeah, there's 4 titles, 2 NES, 2 Super Nintendo. They're kind of junk, and it's like, man, for me, it's like, where's Donkey Kong Country? Where's Chrono Trigger? Where's like any other?
Chrono Trigger is gonna be hard, but yeah, Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah.
There are so many other games that they need to add to the library.
There's so many. I mean, I could just sit here and pull out like my library and be like, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want anything. But the ones that came, I was like, what's up with this? You know, they have Poppin' Twin Bee, Smash Tennis, Shadow of the Ninja, and Eliminator Boat Duel. Does anybody even know these games? Like, does anybody? You'd have to go look up the box art. You have to go look up a little bit of gameplay, and it's like,
dude, and we're nerds and we don't know these games. It blows my mind.
That's it on that. The next little bit of talking point was Sony is kind of pricing out the PS5. This has kind of been in the news a lot recently. I'm not really giving it a lot of weight because it just seems more like rumor-esque. Like, basically, like everybody's assuming that Sony is withholding the announcement of the price of the game until Microsoft reveals their hand, which would kind of make sense. I do know that pricing the console appropriately is going to have an effect on the initial launch of the game or of the console generation itself. Like, it's been proven. People don't like paying $600 for a brand new console. Like, we know that.
Yeah.
But the current
it worked out really well for them last generation.
Yeah.
So I would argue it's probably what they're doing. I mean, it's hard to. We don't work at Sony, so it's hard to really understand. But it's not a bad tactic.
All the rumors going around now, which I don't know what they're based off of. I don't think anybody's actually talked to like a CEO or exec or somebody high level saying like, how much is this going to be? But they're just saying that like the cooling system itself is supposedly like super high end. It's gonna be expensive. Hopefully, it doesn't sound like a damn jet engine every time you start up
right.
I have a PS4 Pro
Silent.
and it does that.
Silent.
Yeah. So that'd be pretty nice.
So,
we don't know what the price point's going to be. I've seen everything from $450 to $500. I think most people are willing to pay that.
$550 to $600 based on what some of the specs that they're touting, dude. But we'll see. I mean, they're going to sell it at a loss, like no question. But I just don't know what that loss is.
That's it for that. The next one. So there's a pretty big Nintendo Direct drought going on right now. 164 days since the last Direct. I was actually thinking about having its own segment for this, but just opted against it just for like time purposes. But honestly, like, it doesn't bother me at all. Like, not at all. So yeah, it's been 164 days since the last Direct. I'm always looking forward to a Direct. I love it.
It doesn't feel like it though, because we had Smash and Pokemon. So we had Directs.
Yeah.
They just weren't Nintendo Directs.
Yeah.
Like, that's why this is like, and there's so many games to play right now that I'm not like hungering for the next thing to come out. And I know it's going to happen, right? Like we're going to get one before E3. It's just, like, let them cook,
People are worried because it's like, what do you have in 2020? What has a release date? And it's like Animal Crossing. And like, we know Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition is coming out. We don't know when. There's not like a release date. They don't have much lined up. But obviously, it's like, I'm in the same boat as you. Like, let it cook. They're going to announce it. I'm going to be hyped whenever they do. Like, it doesn't bother me.
And I would argue it's almost more exciting when they announce something that's like 6 months away.
Yeah.
Yeah. When Fallout 4 was announced and it came out that year, you're like, what the hell? Like, that's crazy,
Yeah. Gameplay choices aside.
Yeah.
That was probably my least favorite Fallout that I played. But
yeah. But I was just saying, the way that game was announced and
it came out pretty
well
quick.
Done. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm okay with it. Just like I said, like, it's cool. I love the Nintendo Directs. I mean, the dedicated ones are okay. Like, I'm not a big fan of, say, a 35-minute Smash Direct with one small announcement at the end of it. Like, okay, if I'm really, really interested in that game, then yeah, that's going to be like Christmas to me. But otherwise, I want to see their lineup of games. I want to see release dates. I want to see what they've been secretly working on. Like, I can't wait to see all that. But, I can wait. I just know I wanted to bring this up because a lot of people on the line, dude, are getting like antsy. Like super antsy. Like,
dude,
entitled.
The internet's
like,
gonna be the internet, dude. Like, people get pissed about stupid Nintendo shit every day of the week. No surprise there.
If you ever go dive into the comments of any post that
Don't.
Nintendo ever makes,
Don't.
just don't. It's a bad time.
Yeah, it's just like stupid memes about Nintendo Direct.
The next bit of news came this week was Geoff Keighly opted to skip out on E3 this year. He has been at every E3 for 25 years. So this was kind of a big decision. He runs the E3 Colosseum.
So he used to host the E3 Colosseum, like the show that went on during E3 where he like invited guests and they talked about their games, and he also founded the Game Awards.
Yeah.
So he's industry vet. He's been
Everybody knows him.
Yeah, everyone knows Geoff Keighly in the video game journalism industry. He knows just about every video game developer. He's very well connected, and so for those who don't know, like, this is actually a pretty big deal for him to say, like, in 25 years, this is the first time I'm not going.
Yeah. And he actually did kind of like a small AMA just like on Twitter. He's just like, hey guys, just to let you know, this is my personal thing. I'm not going to be there. I'm not going to attend. Ask any questions you may have. People are like, well, why? What's the reasoning?
Right.
And
what the hell's going on?
Without saying anything direct, he's just saying that basically he wants the E3 to be more digital, more worldwide. He wants it to be, I guess, more connected. He doesn't like the way it's like run, but he hasn't said like anything super, like, say, negative about what's an ESA, I think is one that runs it. But
he's diplomatic.
You have to.
I think you got to read between the lines, and I think honestly, I agree with a lot of his takes, and I think he's coming at it from a very global perspective. He also hosts opening night. I forget what the acronym is for Gamescom. There's like opening night live or something. He just started. It's like a similar event to like an E3 press conference that they do to open up Gamescom. And if you look at Gamescom, like the way that event is run, it's very deliberate. It is a public show, but there's also like deliberately, like, I think there's press days where only the press can attend in like press areas. It's like very specific, like, hey, press don't have to deal with lines. They can get all the reviews and previews up that they need. And if gamer fans that aren't press want to just come and enjoy the atmosphere and the games, they can also do that. I think
Have you seen the prices for E3? If you want the premium pass as a gamer fan,
what is it, like $300?
$1,000. It's $160 if you just want to be like, hey, I'm a gamer. I want to come to E3 for 2 days. It's like $160. But if you want that extra day where there might be a little bit less people and you're still just a gamer person, or you can do the I'm a journalist or someone in the industry, like $995 or something. It's $1,000.
And I think what Geoff is saying from like a digital perspective is like there's only so many people that can go to E3,
right?
And this idea that this trade show used to be really relevant 25 years ago when only a limited number of people could even go. They didn't have like internet to download the latest games. So the only way that we heard about games were from journalists and outlets who had exclusive access. Now in today's age, like, anyone can be a journalist. Like, shit, like, we're basically journalists by having a podcast, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about our experiences, and the way that we consume games is so digital because of the ability to download everything, that the fact that they're expecting only a limited number of people to go to a show floor and wait 3 hours for a 15-minute demo is like very, very hard sell if we want E3 to be a celebration for all gamers,
Well, this transitions really well into the next segment. We can continue talking about it, but this segment's going to be called Electronic Entertainment Expo. What I wrote down here is let's talk about E3 and relevancy. Is the current model for E3 outdated? Kind of exactly like what we're talking about here, with major publishers opting out or showcasing at their own venue, kind of like Microsoft is doing to avoid the exorbitant costs. Are we, as consumers, missing anything from the experience? Can everyone just go the Nintendo Direct route, Sony State of Play, Inside Xbox route, just publish a video online? And then for you, like, do you watch E3 in its entirety, or do you just check the highlights? I already know you check it, you watch it in its entirety. This was for if we had more people on the podcast, because we both watch it. But like you were saying, like the more digital route would be a lot more appealing. They only opened it up to gamers a couple of years ago, like 2 or 3 years ago. Before that, it was like media only.
Yeah.
And then now that it's open up to gamers, the show floor is ridiculous. Like you said, you're going to spend all day there waiting in line to hopefully play one game.
Yeah. So here's my take on it. Like, what if I was in charge of E3? I would love to do a system where, similar to what actually Geoff did for the Game Awards, where he actually had the night of the Game Awards, there were 10 or like 15 games that you could just download from Steam for like 48 hours and just play. I'd love to have this idea where developers can release demos of their game to the public so you can play them and test them out via a streaming service. If you go in person, you'll still get some extra perks. Like, you'll get swag, you'll get maybe access to demos that people can't download. Like, you'll actually get to like play with new hardware potentially. Like, there's definitely parts of being at E3 that I see the value in. I do think to the Gamescom point also, like, journalists need to be able to do their job, and I don't think you should throw journalists in with the rest of the public. Frankly, I'm not a
Right.
journalist,
I agree.
but I think
They
that
have a job to do, man.
they have a job. Like, they're there as a trade show, and so they need to be able to have their own days, have their own previews, have their own ability to see everything. And then if there is going to be like there used to be like an E for all, which I was a part of E3 that was specifically for the fans. I think it was like 2008, 2009 maybe, something like that. But I don't think it was like super well received, and I'm not really sure why. So maybe like developers didn't put enough effort or time into it. But that's what I think makes the most sense. Like, really mirror the Gamescom model, where you have days and areas specific for press, days and areas specific for fans. They're all there at the same event, so yeah, you can interact with the fans if you're press and vice versa. But then this idea of these big conferences, like, I love E3 press conferences, right? Like, that to me is like Christmas come early.
Yeah.
And I know it's like, it's interesting to say that, because if you boil it down, all it is just like a big marketing event. It's just like trying to get us to pay more money for games. But
yeah.
I think that those events really set the tone for the next 12 months of those developers and publishers. It really it says, hey, this is what we're about. These are the games that we like to develop. These are the games we are developing. Please be excited, right? And I think without that presence, you know, it's a visibility factor. It's an excitement factor. Like, we've talked a lot about like the pre-game hype, and I think it is an important factor for the cycle, right? Like, getting excited about games is, you know, in some regards, like I said, like the hype for Metal Gear 5 like exceeded the game itself, right? I think all of those conferences have been and should continue to be live streamed to the public. So you have, you know, and again, if you want to encourage attendance, you give people free swag or demos when they go, right? Like, I remember when they did the Nintendo press conference. I know Nintendo only does directs anymore, which is a bummer, but it's cheaper for them, so it's a business move, I think. But when they used to have conferences, like when the 3DS was unveiled, they did the conference, and then they had for attendees 3DSs for them to demo. That's perfect to me. I'm like, I don't get to demo it, which is fine.
But if you're there, you do.
Yeah, but if you're there, that's your bonus. At least I can see what they're talking about, the games that they're talking about, and I get to hear from the journalists who are doing their job what it's like to actually experience it.
Well, a big thing with this is, like, first part of the question is, like, is the current model for E3 outdated? And this comes from, not only is Geoff Keighly, like, one of the big guys in the industry right now that, like, most people know about. Sony has backed out 2 years in a row now. Microsoft's across the street. I've heard, I haven't checked the figures, but just the ESA charges a crap ton, like a ton of money for people to host at their venue. And so, like, is this kind of model outdated where everybody goes physically to the location, everybody swarms in like sardines to try to play a couple minutes of one game after spending hours in line? Like, kind of like what you're saying, like, there's ways they can improve it. They can release demos like they do at the Game Awards. They can try to make it where it's more segmented, where, like, I know that they have a couple, I think 2 days dedicated to journalists, 2 days dedicated for everybody, something like that. Like, but I'm not really sure, man. Like, I'm thinking the way that the world is now, like, all these companies, they could just go on Twitter. I can post a quick snippet of 140 characters or less, like, hey, we're working on this game, and then, like, do a quick 10-second, like, that would get mass reception. Everybody just watches them. You're following them on Twitter, like, you're going to see that. It doesn't have the same impact. I'm like you. I do like watching this. I like going through every single announcement. Like, I really, really like that. But I feel like the big game companies are like, do we need to spend this kind of money? Do we need to do this to get our word out? Like, look at Nintendo, like you said, like, they're not doing the traditional routing where they just publish their direct. Their crazy hype goes around that every single time. We said, that drought.
Well, because you got to think from the fan perspective, it didn't change too much. They're still just like presenting. The one element that's lost and I will always miss is whenever it's like a live presentation, there's always that element of danger, right?
Yeah, I like that too.
Which I know they hated because,
of course,
like the Skyward Sword demo that all got fucked up because of all the cell phone reception. Like, that's why they don't do it. Like, if I was a business, I wouldn't do that either. Because
you want it controlled.
Why would you spend all that money and then have it, like, if there's that risk of danger, you fuck up in front of the world? Like, it's just more like, for the viewer, it's like a selfish sense of showmanship, but from a business, it makes no sense to do a live conference.
Yeah, but I mean, as a viewer, I like that too. Like when there's a fuck up, like I enjoy it, you know. Like or
well,
man,
for like real people, like it shows you it's like this is just like working.
Right? Yeah, this happens. You know, it doesn't have to be a perfectly controlled 30 to 45 minute direct by Nintendo where people are reading from cue cards. Like it doesn't have to be that. Like I do like it when it's personable, like Phil Spencer or previously, like say Sean Layden or Reggie. Like they get up there and they present. Again, it's probably off cue cards, but they're up there on stage. Like they're, like you said, that sense of danger's there.
Yeah.
And what I really liked is, so man, I watched the first E3 and I didn't watch the entire thing, but a lot of it, like for the first time in 2013, and it was for the last console generation, like the launch that was coming out, and I watched all of like the Microsoft one, and I watched PlayStation's response, and like I watched all of this.
So
and
last minute, you never know, right?
So it's a great line for games.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think people are going to love it, and then they're going to understand what we're trying to create and how it links games and entertainment, the functionality of the box, some of the advantages that you get of having a box that is designed to use an online state. So that, to me, is a future-proof choice, and I think people could have arguably gone the other way if we didn't do it, and fortunately we have a product for people who aren't able to get some form of connectivity. It's called Xbox 360.
Right. So stick with 360. That's your message. If you don't,
Well,
don't like it,
if you
that's why I was looking forward to this year, because I'm like, man, we got another console generation. This reminds me of the first one I pretty much watched almost in its entirety, and I'm like, can't wait, because this is going to be another battle. Like if anybody doesn't know, like Microsoft fucked up. Like I mean, I was in Kyrgyzstan, and I'm like sitting in a bunk like this, my little room that I have with my own little bunk bed, and I'm sitting here with my phone that's connected to like the shitty internet.
Like really trying to like
dude
through,
everything I can, and with not great internet. I'm like, watching. I'm pretty sure Phil Spencer go across the stage, and what they're announcing with like he's online, and how like they want to get rid of like used games where you have to have like the new game. You can't use like the used game.
And then I love that. Yeah.
They announced the price, and everybody was like, "Oh, that's expensive.
Shit.
I have to have this." As somebody who had Kinect on the 360 and seeing it was kind of forced for the Xbox One, I didn't like that. They immediately backtracked. I loved Sony's reception. Like they just handed the
How you
fucking
share games. Yeah, I know.
handed the disc. Like
This is how you share your games on PS4.
Thanks.
PlayStation.
I like that. Yeah, sense of danger, that hurt them. So it's like that wasn't a strong start for them, at least. That isn't the only thing that hurt them, but it didn't help them. But I like that. You know, it's console wars. Like I'm not pro anything. Like I'm not big Xbox fanboy versus Nintendo versus Sony. Like I just like games, you know. But I like when they battle like that a little bit. I like when there's a little bit of competition, because ultimately it's only good for us. Microsoft wouldn't be acquiring these studios and trying harder if they were ahead, you know, like if they had to, like they're doing this to catch up, to be more competitive so people like me can play their games. And I love that. Obviously that's a good thing. So it just sucks kind of going into this year, and it's like you're missing out on a big face, like Jeff's out, and then Sony's skipping the year of a console launch. And so I just feel like this kind of sucks. I mean, Sony's still going to do their own thing, probably. If not this month and next month, like whatever, they'll post their big announcement, I'm sure, and we'll know more about the PS5, and I'll still get somewhat of the same feeling, but I guess it's just different when they're all up on stage, like you said, and I have such vivid memories of 2013. It was like I wanted something fun to happen.
Yeah, I know. It's that danger.
Let's move on to the final bit of the podcast. This will be the war cry, and this one, I think, this was your idea as well. It's whether or not we should do digital or physical games, like basically as a medium to use to play your games. Do you prefer retaining physical cases games, or have you embraced the digital future? Is there something to be said of having a physical cartridge or disc to provide a sense of ownership, or are you okay with it sitting in your library like digitally? I mean, for me, obviously, if you look at me, I have like a shit ton of like physical games, but for any of the new stuff, I'm like mixed. I'm like 50-50. I think like half my library on Switch is physical, half is digital. Same, actually, probably even heavier lean towards digital on my PS4. and I have a 4 terabyte hard drive on that sucker, like pretty much for that purpose. But it's like, for me, one of the big things that started to move my mindset away from that is like, now that I'm in Japan, if I want to buy a game from like Amazon, it's 10 days to 14 days till it gets here. So like, I wanted to play Dragon Ball Z Kakarot day one. Yeah, I kind of want like the disc and all that, but not enough to where I'm going to want to wait. Brandon would wait. I know Brandon would wait until it falls within his line of like, oh, I'm playing this next. Me, Dragon Ball Z trumped everything. It jumps to number one.
You need
like,
that Kakarot.
I need it. And that's how I am with like certain games, and same with like Call of Duty. Once everybody at work decided, hey, we're all going to be playing this, and I'm like, okay, I'll buy it, and I just immediately jump on it. So, and I get the digital version because I don't want to wait to see for like we do have a store here on base. Like, we do have a smaller exchange, as like, it doesn't have everything. Like, you'll have some titles, but you won't have others. Like, some big releases, you'll have, others you won't. Sometimes it comes 2 weeks late, so it's like, digital's way easier. It's convenient. Right. As far as like old titles, physical, I've messed around with emulators. I actually have played emulated games like a fair bit. I don't like it. It's not. I play my old school games for like the nostalgic feeling, to remember what it was like to play through at some period of my life, a time of my life. It doesn't just come from like the game itself. It comes from holding the right controller. It comes from booting up the system, especially if the system was like my same old system. If that game was my same old game I got for Christmas when I was 8 years old, like,
your 8-year-old hands held that controller.
Yeah, man. Like, yeah, same exact controller. It's like, that's why I keep my old game consoles. That's why I keep everything like physical. Yeah, I know, like, you can go to like Super Nintendo Online, or the Nintendo Switch Online service with the SNES games that they have. They don't have everything. They don't have, like we were talking earlier, 90% of my catalog, so it's like I still have to have that. I have the SNES Classic, I've played that a little bit. It's all like digital games, but they don't have all the games I have, so it's like I do have to retain those games.
But theoretically, if you could get those games on the SNES Classic, would you prefer them, or do you still like having your physical cartridges?
I would say, just because of the way that model is, I would still prefer to have it, because at least with like Xbox Game Pass and Xbox Game Pass, they rotate in and out. PlayStation Plus games that you get free are, the moment you stop paying for that service, you can't access the games. Yeah. So it's like, I would still prefer to have access to it myself. It does suck that, I mean, I've moved so many times. I've moved like probably 20 plus times, I'd say, in my life. So this shit has been boxed up, unpacked, stuff, every single time, reset up, and I'll play games like as I feel like I want to play them. But so like, that's a pain. I understand it's way more convenient to have digital, but just for me, the fact that I can access them anytime I want outweighs that. But it's only, again, for those nostalgic purposes. I'm not a collector. I don't have 800 NES titles like stacked on the wall behind me. It's the games that I've played. It's the games that I've owned as a kid, so it's a little bit different. I'm not a huge collector. As you see, a Japanese N64 system in the background.
Yeah, I was going to say. And weren't you the one? The reason I asked this question is because I remember you were going through that exercise of getting all those boxes for all those games that you had.
I found a guy on eBay that it was like $5. Yeah, $5 per box, and say is buy 2 get 1 free. So $10 gets you 3 boxes, and all my games were just the cartridges themselves. I don't have all the boxes and stuff, only for like Donkey Kong Country. Like, that's it. Everything else, I was like, well, I know for storage medium, or trying to retain them for like longevity and stuff, like you do kind of want them to be stored in a box, so that the whatever you call it, the chip itself, the under the
not
part
exposed,
of the same with like, which I didn't learn until recently, you can see I have games plugged into the consoles themselves there. That's because dust gets in there. So if dust gets in there, it ruins it. So the way that you do that is you stick a game in the cartridge, you always have it in, and then you want your other games like
switch it out
in a box. And so I did that, and it's cool. This guy, I mean, it's pretty cool. He prints off the old manual, he puts it in, I think he 3D prints the box itself. They all look the same. So all my old N64 games, my Super Nintendo games, Game Boy Advance games, I think everything that I have now, like 90% of what I have now is going to be boxed up. So I like that. It just looks more presentable for, like it looks more presentable, and it's it's good for like the longevity of the system or longevity
Yeah.
of the games itself. But yeah, that was 10 minutes of me going on about physical. What about you, man? Sorry.
Yeah, I mean that's the war cry. So it's interesting. I have a couple reasons why I would choose physical over digital or vice versa, and I think there might not be the first things that come to mind. So I agree with you on the convenience factor. I typically have most of my console games on physical, and obviously I have a PC, a lot of digital, and I'm starting to get some games on Switch for digital, but one of my factors is price. So as you know, I don't typically buy games at launch. I typically will wait, I'm going through my backlog, and then something comes up on sale and I'll buy it. And so something coming up on sale is a very important factor for me whether I buy it digital or physical. Now, Nintendo has gotten a lot better at some of their eShop sales. So a good example, I bought Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle digital, which is like a big game that like I typically probably would have bought physical in the past, but because it was like 80% off for the digital version, I was like, shit, I'll buy digital. Now, I do a lot of Steam sale and stuff like that because obviously like you can get those games on discount. Now, when I get a PlayStation 5, this is going to be really interesting because I would imagine that most of those, like if you could go to the PlayStation Store and buy old PlayStation 3 games, they're probably going to be, I don't know, like somewhat like $30, $40 maybe, and each of them is going to be $30, $40. I can guarantee you I can get physical versions of those games for significantly cheaper.
Right.
That is going to be a huge factor. So to me, even though it's more convenient to like just switch between apps on a console, if I can get a game for half to 75% cheaper physically, then I'll do that any day of the week. Like that,
Right.
that to me is a big factor.
Price
Now,
weighs in heavily.
Yeah. The other thing that's important, and I think it's I was thinking about this question, I actually prefer to have multiplayer games as physical copies. And I'll tell you why. If I had all of my single-player games digital, I think I'd be fine with it. But multiplayer games, I think it's typically difficult to, like, let's say people come over and you want to play a multiplayer game. A lot of console UIs are not super designed for, like, sorting through games in, like, a fairly easy, intuitive fashion to see which are multiplayer. And so I really like just having a bunch of Switch or GameCube or Wii games that are like obviously multiplayer, and I've like organized them on my shelf to be like, here are my multiplayer games. So somebody comes over and they can easily see without me having to turn the TV or anything, just be like, all right, what do you got? What do you got? All right, we're playing Mario Kart. All right, what do you got? We're playing Smash. And so that's something that I've actually thought about.
I mean, those are the only two games you need to play anyway, so...
Yeah, right.
I mean,
well, no, I have a lot of like fun local co-op games, and I think I think if I had a large digital library, it'd be harder for me to like show people those specific games based on the UIs of today. Like the Switch UI just sorts all your games by playtime. If there was a way to do folders on the Switch UI or PlayStation 5 UI that's like, these are local co-op games, I might change that perspective, but until someone shows me that ability, I think I will always prefer to have these local multiplayer games as physical copies so we can have that conversation in person and not have to deal with like a confusing UI that doesn't really show you which games are multiplayer and which aren't.
what is the reason behind that? Small tangent, but like, why can I not organize my own...
Yeah, Switch organization.
Why? Like, I don't understand. Like, I want to so bad. Like, put my RPGs in one, put my racing games in one, put my, say just one strategy game I have by itself, like, or multiplayer, like you said. It'd be so much, like, why?
Nintendo UI design. It's so crazy being a Nintendo fan because I absolutely love that company, but they're definitely like behind the ball on like so many quality of life things. It's hilarious.
And they don't have to. It's like you're catering to, if they were to incorporate that, like, how many diehard fans really care about that? Maybe the vocal minority, but really, like,
that's why they're not doing it. That's why they're not doing it, because it doesn't make financial sense because they're still selling games.
Why dedicate resources to this when we can just spend that time making games, But the other big thing about, like, say, physical games, dude, is, and I've done this, like, even here several times, like, you can lend games out to friends. At least with like you, I played What Remains of
Stealing.
Steam
but
Steal.
Steam
like,
Steal.
I just took your game recently. I know you've taken like 90% of my library, but
taking a lot of your stuff. Yeah.
in general, like, I know John wanted to play through Golden Sun again, so here, hand to him this.
I gave you Chrono Trigger, right? Yeah.
Chrono Trigger, you hand to me, and I can play this thing. Like, you can't do that on a lot of these other games. So, like, having that physical thing gives you that ability, and it depends on like how often you do it. But I mean, several times, maybe 2 or 3 times in the last year and a half, like that. Maybe that's not like enough to justify it. Maybe more when I was in Denver.
I don't do a lot of game swapping, so it's not a huge factor for me. But I can see for someone if you have like a sibling or somebody who you live close to. Yeah, I can see that.
But yeah, man. Any other thoughts on the Warcry?
I mean, I think again, my factors are probably different than your factors. Like
yours are mainly price. It seems like more like you don't care if it's physical or digital. It's price. I'm thinking more convenience and nostalgia. Like just different ideas. I mean, moving into the PS4, I think rumors are like so many rumors. Yeah, sorry, PS5, but it's like it's supposed to be like a 2 terabyte hard drive, which whatever.
I'm not gonna speculate. Like we'll see.
Doesn't matter,
when
but
it gets announced.
Either way, it's like, I mean, I'm like 60 or 70% through my 4 terabyte hard drive on my PS4 already, and the big thing about that is like how this generation goes is say you put that disc in, so much of that game has to be downloaded, like, and then the multiplayer itself gets tacked on, and then any add-ons, and then any DLC, and like with a Nintendo cartridge that I put in my Switch, almost all of them are like fully on that disc. Every now and then you'll get a game that's like it's like a download only, or only a small portion of it is, and you download the rest, but most of it's on that. And that's why I get that, because like your Nintendo, dude, like it's got 32 gigs of internal storage, something like that. I think that's what it is.
Switch, like you can do the micro SDs. I got like a really large micro SD, assuming I was going to download, and I've downloaded a lot of indie games. But I think the difference here is like the physical versions.
There's sometimes not physical versions of indie games. You pretty much have to.
And so the indie games that are small and you can just like download them really quickly. And again, a lot of those indie games are single player, right? So it's not like a big deal. But some of like the larger install games, I think it would be more annoying to switch out micro SD cards. Right? Like switch that out. Like that's a tiny little thing that you got to figure out where the hell to put it because there's not a case for it. So I don't want to fill up that micro SD card. So I'm purposely not buying a lot of digital Switch games because of that.
I think most of my micro SD card is filled with like screenshots and 30-second clips. Like I got so many, at least $1,000. You know, it's like, whenever I see something in the game, I don't remember that. And I may go back and view that same photo one time. Like once a year, I may scroll through my photos.
I got some good Breath of the Wild and Dragon Quest photos.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to go all the way back to like the beginning when you first owned the Switch and just like scroll through and like real quick go through like 10 photos at a time. Like, oh, I remember playing this 3 years ago.
Speaking of nostalgia, dude, bringing you back.
It's been 3 years since the Switch was released, in a couple more weeks.
Console, dude. It's a good console.
Man, actually, small tangent aside, like even. I was debating whether or not to get that because, like, I did not get the Wii U. I had the Wii, but whenever the Switch was announced,
did I sell you on the Switch?
You did.
Yeah.
And I actually waited. I waited until I got your review for it because, like, you knew you were going to get it, and I was on the fence. I really did want to play the new Zelda game, but I'm like, I want to drop.
I feel like I sold you more on Zelda than I did on the Switch.
And I was at work. You were playing it all day, like on launch day. Like you were telling me how great it was. I was like, man. I have to go out and get a Switch. You know, like this.
I remember this. Yeah.
And so like I'm trying to look around. I think I went to like Walmart or Target or something like that, like nearby, and I was like, oh shit, everything is sold out. Like everything near here is sold out. And then I had the brilliant idea, which I don't know why I didn't think about it earlier. I was like, on base, like there's an exchange and it's tax free. It gives you like a tax free discount. So $300 is $300, not plus 8%. And I was like, it's limited population because not everybody can access it. So let me go check. And, you know, after work, I went there and checked. And they had like 2 boxes left. Each were the gray Joy-Cons, like just standard or whatever. But I was like, bam, they have it. And they had Breath of the Wild sitting there. I was like, that was my purchase, was that game and that console. And then that was like my next couple months.
You just go down a rabbit hole with that game, dude.
Yeah. But yeah, man, that's it. That does it for podcast number 12. 12 freaking podcasts already. Can't wait till that number gets way higher.
Yeah, I know. We're getting there.
Yeah, we'll see who's going to join us next week. It's always up in the air. It's just, we'll see what everybody's plans are, like usual. I think Thursday or Friday we kind of send out our feelers and be like, hey, who's going to be available? Sometimes we have random guests on, like some of Brandon's friends
Josh,
from over
yeah.
there. Sometimes like there's some people that express interest over here. So we'll see who joins us next week. I should be here. I don't think I have any plans for next Sunday.
Yeah.
Hopefully more
calendar,
sleep.
Yeah, right. Yeah, hopefully more than 30 minutes, dude.
Yeah. But thank you guys all for joining us in this podcast. If you're new here, consider subscribing to continue listening to all our content. And if you're listening to this via one of the, podcast platforms, like, say, iTunes or Alexa, Spotify, on YouTube, there's a link in the description below that you can go to and see our more edited video. You can kind of see our ugly mugs here in person.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it. Take care, guys. We'll see you.
Later.